It's Saturday morning, Mike. That means it's the final day of the U.S. Open.
Here you were
We
all
made it.
excited. You were all excited that the tournament was in the U.S. so we wouldn't have all these early starts, and here we are at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning doing the
I
show.
figured we would. I figured they'd do something like maybe 10, or no, sorry, like maybe 11, 1, and then a final like around 5, something like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
I did too. Yeah, they're starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time, which is, but then you got to consider that their main broadcast partner is Sky. So it's six
Okay.
hours difference from Chicago, 5 hours difference from New Jersey. So that's late
I get it.
afternoon for them, and then the final will be about 9 o'clock local time in London. So uh, yeah, so that's why it's earlier than we would have liked.
Well, kickoff is in about 50 minutes, Mike. So we got to cram a bunch of stuff in. It was a busy day yesterday at the U.S. Open. It started off with 16 players, and boy, were there some fantastic matchups right out the gate, Mike.
There were, I mean, well, it started with a couple upsets right out of the gate. On the main TV table. I mean, Chris Melling just tore through Lee Van Corteza like he wasn't even there. Um, and then right after that, um, Eklund Kachi ripped through Josh Filler 10-1. So, it kind of looked like, we've been talking about how the break is, evening out the game and making, open layouts a little bit tougher. Well, Melling and Kachi put
They
that
made it
to
look real
rest.
easy.
They
They
made
made
it
it
look
look real
real
easy.
easy. They
Yeah.
had one open rack after the next. They were breaking like monsters. Um, so they just ripped through those matches.
Yeah, it was really surprising to go and see Clenny dominate Josh the way he did. He seemed to have a very great mix of the touch to go in and get that break the way that he wanted, but with power. If that makes any sense, it's kind of
Yeah, no,
contradictory,
he and
but
he
it.
said he said
Go
in the
ahead.
interview he likes, he prefers that they force him to use power because he likes using power, but it's not a
The dude's
it's not
built
a
like
it's not a Bustamante
Gronkowski.
type of, yeah, he's just man child. So it doesn't take, he doesn't have to use a lot of stroke to get a lot of power into it. But he was busting the rack open, and Josh really never really got much opportunity.
No,
Same with Lee Van, although Lee Van had some chances, and you know he he fouled two or three times on kick shots off safeties. He missed a couple of shots. Looked like he looked like he was too far behind really early, just in his mindset. He just looked like he was like, I don't think I can do this. But yeah, that was a good match. Uh,
yeah, neither one of them got any kind of real opportunity to string anything together. I mean,
right,
when you put one on Josh going to 10, that's remarkable. Levan, and actually, once these matches were done with this first round of 16, a lot of people had both these guys pegged as favorites to go and make it through just because of what they were able to go and watch on the TV tables.
right,
But a lot of the same characters stuck around. Mike, you got Chen over Mario He in a thriller 10-8. Carlo
yeah,
Beato 10-7 over Conrad. I didn't get to watch none of that match, but damn, that's you had a chance to take out the defending champion, and he's still around going into the final day as well.
yeah. Conrad had his chances. He was with him, toe to toe for most of it. Had a little bit of a lead early on and midway through the match. Um, couldn't get it done. And then, talk about favorites. Chang got drubbed by Francisco. He really that was a surprising, you know, that was surprisingly lopsided.
Well, but it was decent halfway through. Chang had the lead early on. Francisco fights back. Then they're around, they're around 5 each, and then Francisco just he's one of the few players where a 3 is easy for him. Like
Right.
a 3 is pretty spot on for him.
And
The
that's
only thing,
exactly what he did when Chang played a loose safety and
the
gave him a
jump
jump
shot.
shot. And then Francisco jumped it and ran out the next rack and then made the 9 on the break. And all of a sudden there was distance.
We talked yesterday about guys vying for Mosconi Cup spots, and we didn't realize there was more than one until we're like midday through
Holy cow.
yesterday.
In that final eight, when it got to the final eight, Kazakis beat Bisterbach 10-8. That was a good match as well. Then you get into the quarterfinals. Kazakis, Kachi, and Lechner all had a chance
to steal Albin's
to
spot.
steal Albin's spot, but they would have to win the tournament.
Right.
So, the idea that you could have had 3 out of the final 4 be
How strong would that
Europeans,
have been?
those guys would have been, it would have just been fun to watch them look at each other, watch each other play, because so much is on the line. It would have guaranteed that at least one of them was in the final match, right? That's just wild to think about, because we hadn't even really mentioned
No,
Lechner
no,
early
no,
on in the
no.
event is having a possibility. We knew Kazakis and he were up there, but Kachi and Lechner we had kind of slept on a little bit. And after Kachi beat Filler the way he did, you were thinking of those 3, he probably had the best chance to actually win the U.S. Open.
Right. And even though Little Co is a great opponent, he didn't really do anything in that previous round to show dominance the way that Kachi did. Like Kachi
Right.
dominated Josh.
Yeah.
Kachi went
Kachi
and put
looked,
his footprint on there, Mike.
yeah,
Right,
he
right,
looked
right in his
like
back.
he was ready to roll. But a lot of that, all those guys who dominated that last 16, all of a sudden the quarterfinal, everything flip flopped on them. Kachi lost to Ko, and then
He dogged it, Mike. He dogged it. He had his chances.
he did have a
He,
chance for
he
sure.
had he had his chance over and over and over again where he hung up balls. You what you give to Clenny is his ability to make balls, and he can be clutch. Um, that was the first time you really saw him with any kind of rust, because there was some long testers where I just remember, maybe pre-COVID, that Kachi puts that ball down all the time, every time. There was not any question, especially there at the end. I think it was somewhere around 8-8. He had a long straight two ball after they were going back and forth, and just hits it about a half diamond off.
Right.
Just completely butchered it. I don't think he sold out, but he ended up getting the worst of the safety battle thereafter.
Yeah. So he blew his shot there, and then Chris Melling, who looked so good in last 16, got run over by Max.
Who would have saw
So,
that coming, Mike?
well, the way Chris was playing, he's just a dangerous player. Like they kept saying, when he gets into a rhythm and into a flow, he's just dangerous. And honestly, I didn't see that match. So I don't know whether he played poorly or whether Max was just unstoppable. But that was pretty one sided.
Well, welcome everyone who's tuning in. We got about 50 or so people tuning in across all the platforms. Let us know in the chat who you're rooting for going into the final day. There's 4 players that are left. Let me see if we can bring it up here. Max, Little Co, FSR, and Carlo. It's pretty remarkable, especially those guys at the bottom. Francisco for the year that he's had from wire to wire. And then you
Right.
got Carlo, who is defending champion. And we know playing 9 ball how hard it is to go and repeat, Mike.
Okay. It's how hard it is for anybody to win this tournament, period. I mean, this
Right.
is the field to me. It's still the field of the year. And so, to win it, period, and you look at all the guys who are long gone, Josh, Feder, Jason, Alden, Shane, Chang, they're all gone. And you have 2 Asians and 2 Europeans. It's pretty good split. Probably predictable. Um,
You
yeah,
think so? I mean, it looked real European heavy going into the 16.
well,
You know,
there were still 3 Filipinos and 2 or 3 Taiwanese. So there were some Asians in there. They don't have as big a footprint in the field as the Europeans do, but you know, Asia for my money is still the place with the best players overall.
well,
So
Carlo put up Carlo put up quite the score line, Mike. 10-0
10
against
0.
against
That's hard
Chin.
to do.
Well, yeah, me especially, Mike. I didn't want to see 10-0 when we're going into the last day of our fantasy league either, Mike. Those are some those are some that was some massive ground that you made up there.
Yeah,
But
I
I
did.
think I think for me it was mainly Chen's lack of experience playing on a TV table that showed. I mean, and convincingly it showed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and he had done his damage along the way. I mean, you got to give the guy credit. Um, he had knocked out some people every round. You kind of thought, well, this is kind of the end of the line for him, right?
Yeah.
But he did his damage before he went out. Went out in the last 8, which is, it just shows how deep. They talk about how deep Europe is. Shows how deep Asia is, how deep Taiwan is. A guy like that's into the quarterfinals.
We brought up Max earlier, Mike, and I just want to ask you: do you think he's got a shot at making this year's team? Do you think he's got a shot to go and win the next 2 matches?
Um, Boy, it's tall order. To win his match against Little Co. I think that I think he's got a shot there. I mean, he's playing solid. As long as he doesn't get spooked and he plays his game, he can beat Little Co. I think. Um, but then you get the winner of Carlo and FSR. That's going to be a tall order for Max. No matter what comes out of that side, if he reaches the final, it's going to be a tall order. And it's if he reaches the final, though, it's going to be really interesting to hear from Alex Lely on how that impacts his thought process. Because we thought that these guys had to win for sure and get that automatic spot because the wild card picks were going to go to Jason and Feder,
Do you think
right?
that even if Max gets second place, that he's got a chance of making this team? Do you think he's done
I
enough?
think I think that he's got to be pretty close. I mean, when you look, he's going to be, win or
I don't
lose,
know, Mike.
he's going to be just a little bit behind Albin, and the main thing here is what did Federer's performance do um, to Alex's commitment to pick Federer? Because it was his first chance to see him in one of these big open against the best in the world type things in a year, and he didn't dazzle.
He said it pretty matter of fact that you know Federer was, without saying it, Federer was at the top of that list
Yeah, he was
on a short list
a hundred
of
percent.
guys who were in contention for that wild card spot. He mentioned David along the way. I don't think David did anything this event either,
No,
but Federer was the one, like you said, coming into it, a lot of question marks, Mike. And I was, and like I mentioned, and it wasn't just me, having the other side of the coin opinion. It's the it plays different out there. It plays different than everywhere else that he's been at over the
right.
last year, and he didn't. It wasn't just so much that he came up short against Tyler. It was just that he didn't look that as imposing and dominating as he had, over the last year, at least on that stage.
Yeah, I mean he didn't. I mean you still got to think, he's the favorite just because he's Federer,
Right.
and you
For
think
sure.
with a month to go, and Alex has a lot of confidence in his ability to um, to get these guys ready and to impact how they go into a match. So I think from a confidence factor, Alex would look at Federer. My guess would look at Federer and say he's still the best talent out there, and give me a month working with him, getting ready for Mosconi, and I'll have him ready by Las Vegas. That would be the way I would kind of envision it going. But Max has put himself into the equation. I think Max is looking at this though as if he's got to win it all, and I think that's the right approach to take going in here. Go out and win it all. And here's another thing. We keep talking about this like these guys are playing for the Mosconi Cup. Trust me, Max is playing to win the U.S. Open because that's a lot bigger piece of your resume than I played in the 2022 Mosconi Cup. If you say I have the U.S.
I don't know,
Open,
Mike. I
oh
don't.
come on, come on.
I
If
don't.
you had a choice between two things, you get to play in one Mosconi Cup, or you get to say you were the U.S. Open champion.
Okay. Oh, but what? Listen. What have you been? What have you been dreaming of your whole life? You've been dreaming of being a U.S. Open champion, or you've been dreaming of representing Europe on the Mosconi Cup since you were a kid.
Since I'm a kid, yeah, probably playing Mosconi Cup, but it's still going to come back to holding a trophy. He can play in the Mosconi
I'm
Cup and
not
they can
saying there's
lose. You
not
think
any.
that he wouldn't? You think that he would rather finish second place in the Mosconi Cup than hold up the U.S. Open trophy by himself
He
over
ain't.
his head,
Listen,
knowing that
he,
he beat a 256 player field like this? I don't think there's any doubt. The dream is always Mosconi Cup, but on a player's resume, what's going to get him into the
well,
Hall of Fame?
sure. No, that's
Individual titles are what players play for.
yeah, but I think it's more of one hand washes the other in this instance. But I think, and here's the deal. I don't think he's got a chance at making this team without the win. I just don't. And I love Max's game. I loved him enough to go and draft him in our fantasy league, mind you. Okay, but he seems to be kind of an afterthought this year. Hell, me and you were looking at numbers and we didn't even realize it, until midday yesterday that this guy still got a chance at making this team.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
and,
I agree that he's got to. I agree that he's got to win it to get in it.
And here's the
I
thing:
agree with that.
is that we've seen dominance from Federer over the last year, not just winning. Mike, we've seen a guy go and dominate pool for the last, what are we in, 10 months now, if not longer. Just in this year alone. That's what
Agreed.
you got to take it from Federer versus, you're going to make it to a final. That's fantastic. I'm not taking anything away from that. The prestige of the U.S. Open and this field in particular is not to be understated. But had you done enough on top of that with this? I don't think so, Mike, because I would still give a lot more weight to what Kazakis did or even Mario did in the last few months. Just me.
I don't think you're wrong there. I think all those points are valid. I think of the three between Alex, Mario, and Lechner, Max is probably lowest on the list of the three in terms of what have you done for me all year going into this event. So from that standpoint, I'd say, yeah, you're 100% right. And I do agree that he's got to win this to get in it. I just think that it's, that the three of them making the final eight gave Alex a little bit of pause.
That would have been, yeah. I mean, I would have loved. This is what I would have gone and started. I would have bought Alex a camera, and I said, "Everyone, go and chip in $10 a piece, and let's just have a camera on Laley going into the final day, and just
watching these guys,
just him watching the matchups." And that's what I would have paid.
There's two ways. There's two ways for him to watch it. I mean, one way he could watch it is.
Why isn't he there, by the way?
This is an embarrassment of riches. I could just sit here and, it's not like I'm going to be disappointed if one of these guys wins the U.S. Open a month before the Mosconi Cup. It's like, give me the hot hand. I'll take it. So, but, if you're an American at this point, and we both like Max Lechner a lot,
definitely,
as a person and as a player, you have to root for Max Lechner to win this tournament because, no matter how you cut it, he's better. He'd make Team USA in a heartbeat. But you have to believe that you'd love to have two rookies on Europe going into 3,000 U.S. fans in Las Vegas because they could rattle the cage a little bit. So, if you're an American rooting for Team USA, sit there today and you root for Max Lechner to win this tournament.
You think about Max's resume, the one that stands out for me is the obvious. It's the international final that he had against Jason in that run.
Right.
That was kind of what put Max on the radar for a lot of people. This cup break style he's always been good at, going back to that event. I think there's been more pressure as the years gone on, not so much because of what he hasn't done, more so what Mario's done. And what I mean by that is, Max took Mario's spot on the World Cup of Pool team. I think Mario went and gunned to get that spot back. I think he made a hell of an argument over the last few months as well. This is really awesome to see Max in this position. Now, when I think about guys who I just want to root for from a storyline standpoint, it's Max by a mile because I would love to see the guy go and just shock the world and steal one at the last event, on the last day, on the last match, in the last hour. And that's literally, what Max has the ability to do. And if he makes this team, Mike, who are you leaving off? Because you and I.
Then I'm leaving off Federer.
100%.
100% you're leaving off Federer and you're taking Albin and Jason. 100%.
Too. Yeah.
So, which is still an amazing team. But again, I like the USA chances a lot better if there's two rookies on Team Europe. So I mean,
It's even
I
more.
mean,
It's
we
even
think
more of a reason why you need Jason and Albin if you have two rookies on Team Europe.
yes,
They're weighted that much more
right.
because of that experience and to be able to settle those guys
But do you
down.
think? I mean, and they're best friends. Do you think Albin watching Max is going to be thinking a little bit in the back of his head that if Max wins, he could get left off? Or does he think he's a lock? I don't think Albin thinks he's a lock because Albin's been left off in years past when he probably thought he should be on it. So I wonder if there will be anything in the back of Albin's head thinking, you know, of course
I
I'm going to root for Max, but could I end up, on the cutting room floor?
I think so. I think
It would go through
I
your mind, right?
oh you would have pause without a doubt. I think that it's small, but it's there. There's
Yeah,
still a chance because I think Federer could go and move the needle. Federer's a storyline. You know,
yeah,
Federer going and playing the Mosconi Cup is something people are going to want to go and watch, myself included. I don't care what happens. I want to see Federer on that stage. Um, I want to see how he does or how he comes up short, whatever the case may be. I want to be able to watch. I want to see him have the ability to do greatness. Whereas Albin's just the anchor. Albin's the leader. Albin's just gonna go and get you a few points, and
yeah,
he's not gonna do anything flashy.
right.
He's just, he's
So what you're
guaranteed to be
saying
consistent.
is, if you're Emily, she's picking Albin. If you're Alex, I mean, she's picking Federer. If you're Alex, you're
Right.
probably picking Albin because Alex is not looking for, viewers or who's
No,
moving the
he's not.
needle or whatever. Alex is looking to win, and he's going to think he's got a better chance of winning with Albin and Jason if Max makes the team. I don't think there's any doubt.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I would say I would argue Jason's got a much more secure and locked up spot than Albin does as a
Oh,
wild
that's 100%
as a wild card pick. As crazy as that sounds, because Albin's won a major this year
right.
on the Mosconi Cup.
But there's a lot of intangibles that go into Mosconi Cup, and Jason
Right.
brings them all to that
Everything.
team. So,
Everything.
so yeah, I think Alex had Jason on the team, before Josh was on the team. Before Josh earned the first point spot, Jason already had a spot on that team.
Agreed. 1,000,000% agreed. It's a foregone conclusion that Jason's going to make that team, in my opinion. Um,
And
he's
and
just,
there's another reason, and it's not written in stone. And I'm sure there needs to be a UK player on Team Europe.
I mean, from the broadcaster standpoint,
Yes, from the from Matchroom standpoint, from Sky standpoint, you really need to have until Pool gets to the point where everybody around the world's a household name. If you're in the UK, and you're a broadcaster and that's who your partner is and that's whatever, then you've got to have a UK player on the team.
well, that's next level when it comes to
Yeah,
what they're thinking.
yeah,
But he backs it up with the game. He backs
he
it up with
does. Yeah, no one's
his
going to apologize
personality.
for Jason being on the
Right.
team.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's it makes for some interesting matches that are coming up. And everything starts in the next 30 minutes, guys. It'll
Yep.
be on Dazen. They're gonna have a on the East Coast. They're gonna have a 10 a.m., a noon, and then a 4. Is that right, Mike?
That's what I believe to be the case.
So these are when the semifinals are gonna be starting. Let me see if I do not
So yeah,
have.
because 4 o'clock would be 9 o'clock London time. That sounds about right.
All right, Mike. Up top, you got Little Cole versus Max. If you're not picking with your heart, you're just based off of what you saw yesterday. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Max. I'm going with Max.
Really?
I like the way he's playing. He looked really strong. I mean, he beat two really good players. I mean, because Chris Melling was on a roll. He was playing as well as anybody going into that last couple of rounds before the quarterfinals, and he beat Roland Garcia pretty handily. So
Both guys he beat pretty handily.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think he's playing really well. Little Cole is a great player, and but he's kind of gotten through a couple matches that were pretty tight. I just think his luck's going to run out. Not that he's a lucky player, but I just think that I just like Max in this.
Have either one of those matches with Max been on like the TV table?
The
I
main
think
TV table, I don't think I've
I
seen
don't
him
think
playing
so.
it yet. Yeah.
I don't think so. Little
Well,
Co's
it's
Little Co's been, deep in events before,
yeah,
and we talked about Max being in a final of the international. It's a little bit different than playing for, a US
it
Open on the
is.
matchroom stage.
It is, but I think, I just think that, Max has Albin in his corner, talking to him all yesterday, all last night, all
Well,
this morning. I'm
how
sure.
great is that though, Mike? As
Yeah,
many finals
how
as that
nice
guy's
is
been in
that
the
to have? I
last
mean,
two
they're best
years.
friends. He's going to help them through, and I just think Max knows that he can accomplish two huge things in two matches. One is win a major international title, and none bigger than the U.S. Open, and also make the Mosconi Cup. He can do that. And so I just think his focus, it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to learn a lot about Max, his ability to handle this, because there's a lot of pressure here. He's got to put a lot of pressure on himself. How does he handle it? How does he go through these matches? There's so much at stake for him in these next two matches. And if he can go pull it off, man, think of what that could do for your future as far as confidence and putting your imposition on other players. So I would love to see him do it. I mean, selfishly as a Team USA fan, but also, I love a storyline like that. I love a guy who has to come with it, and he does.
Well, you got a chance to really, put your stamp on your case, but you got to go wire to wire, and it's not going to be easy when you got, even if you fade Little Co, you got the guy who's been the most consistent nine-ball player all year long waiting for you, or you got the defending champion
Yeah, no, I
waiting
think the
for you.
finals, the finals, yeah,
Good luck.
that's gonna be a tall order, and that's why I say if Max can win these next two matches and win this title, shit, that's you can mic drop right there and just take the rest of your life off, because it's not going to get any better than that, right?
Let us know in the chat who you got making it through from the semifinals and who you got winning the overall event. The U.S.
Who
Open
who do
is
you
going to
like,
finish it
Max
today.
against Co? Should we call
I
down?
I
See
can't.
where his money is.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me get out of my head what happened last year with Max at the U.S. Open. It was a pretty big letdown, and I think he had a lead against, I want to say it was Abdullah, and I can't but I know he was in a really good spot, and then the wheels came off, and that's that's what's still that's what's still lingering for me.
Yeah,
You're in the final day, so you're in a really good spot to still make your case and to win a major, and a great major at that, and an amazing field. Um, but you got to go and do it first, and it's not easy. Little Co is a world champion. Little Co is a monster player. Going up against Kachi, after Kachi did what he did to Filler, and
yeah,
it got a little testy there at the end. It got a little tight. He delivered when he needed to, but to go and beat him the way that he did, um, after what Kachi did to Filler, it's tough.
yeah.
That's not, no disrespect, but he's not Chris Melling. After we ain't seen Chris in a year, and he's not
Right.
Roland Garcia. Uh, just from a name standpoint and from an imposing figure standpoint. Um, now, but I'm rooting for Max though. I want to see it just from.
But
I want to.
you're expecting him to go all Kazakhs on us before this is over.
I I wouldn't. It's close. I
It's
wouldn't
well, I
quite.
mean, you're expecting him to have that hiccup that he has, and guys have to get over that. I thought Alex got over it when he beat Shane,
Do you remember? Do you
and
remember the PLP? Was it this year's PLP or last year's CLP? Whichever one. Max looked terrible. I mean,
oh yeah,
just
when
I
he
mean,
went to that, he got invited to that early match room, five guys a day type of thing, and
couldn't win a match, Mike.
oh my God, couldn't win a match. But you play when you get on a roll, you're on a roll, and that usually
Definitely.
tends to last, right? So I don't think he's going to play terrible. It's just, is he going to have that moment that we kind of looked for out of Alex? That you know he trips getting right near the line. Um, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him go through because it would be the best. It would be one of the best stories of the year. I mean, there's
I would
so much
love it.
on him. And in response to someone who asked a little earlier, yes, if Max Lechner wins this event, he gets the third automatic spot on Team Europe for Mosconi Cup.
And
He would
the
edge
whole
out
thing
he
is
would
to
edge out
say,
Albin by a couple $1,000 to make Mosconi Cup. Maybe even less than $2,000, but he would be on the team. So yeah, a lot going on there. What do you like? Well, that's I
I
mean,
want to see out. Listen, I want to be able to not the final's going to be great regardless for me because if Max comes out, no matter who he's
it's a great
facing,
Final Four.
yeah,
It's a
it's a
great Final Four.
listen. Let me tell you something. When Mark Bisterbosch had the lead late, I was like, boy, if they end up with that, if they end up if they if 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 they end up with like a Chen or Mark Bisterbosch, Final Four, or there was a couple of other guys, or when Yanni was giving Little Co all that he can handle, like 2/3 through the match, I said, oh shit, if they end up like this, I don't know how excited I am gonna be going into the final. This particular one, if Max comes through, I'm without a doubt watching. Now, Little Cole up against either one of those players on the other side, I'm for sure going to be watching as well because
Yeah,
there's a lot of exciting things that can go and happen there. Um, I don't know, Mike. It's tough, but I'm gonna if I go just based off of what I seen yesterday,
you're going a little cold.
I don't know, man. Max did look a little bit more steady, but I can't I can't bet against Little Cole though. I just
Okay.
can't. So
Okay.
the other
Well,
the other
the
semifinal
other
matchup, FSR
that's
and
what a
Carlo.
monster, what a monster matchup, right? FSR against Carlo, defending champion against the guy who this year has become his own man. When they talk about Spanish players, it's not David Alcade and FSR. It might be FSR first at this point.
Listen, I've been
He
saying it for
is,
3 years.
yeah,
I've been
he's
saying it for years that FSR has been the better player out of the two Spaniards. And we talked about yesterday with Tyler with guys taking steps in their career. I've seen it with Francisco. I follow this guy quite a bit, whether I'm at an event or if I'm scoreboard watching. I remember at the international years ago before he was as he was David's partner, right? As he was, the
right.
second half of Team Spain. Um, seeing Francisco, beat Copigny when Copigny was a monster, something like 9-1 at the international. I remember seeing him in the final 16 of a U.S. Open playing phenomenal pool there at Mandalay Bay some years back. So we talk. It's about steps in his career, but boy, did the dam burst with this guy. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
he to go wire to wire to win Derby City, and you think, okay, maybe it's a little fluky because anybody can go win, a major if everything kind of works out well. The guy is going deep in Euro tours, if not winning Euro tours. He's going deep in so many events. Mike wins the World Cup of pool as well with David. I mean, how strong of a year! And on top of that, listen, you just get picked for Team Europe. It's the easiest thing in the world to say, I'm going to breathe and to just relax and not give a shit anymore because I made it. I did it. The goal that I had for the year is done. And then to go and win the way that he did yesterday, it's pretty
Yeah,
remarkable, Mike.
it is. It is, and that's probably I think he did breathe that sigh of relief, and he is so happy to be on Mosconi Cup. But again, I don't. I still got to say, if I'm a player holding up a trophy that says I won the U.S. Open championship, is like that's the top thing on my resume.
No,
May
no,
not be.
and I'm not
So
saying that, Mike, but you've seen it in sports before, where like if you have a
there's a
grudge
letdown.
match, a
Yeah, yeah,
grudge match of
yeah.
a game, or like something really strong going to happen,
Right.
and then the
Letdown.
next game, it's a
Yeah,
letdown. It just
yeah.
is. It happens in sports all the time. One of the coolest things that I remember following on social media yesterday is I follow Emily Frazier on on Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah, and she walked up on Francisco FaceTiming his dad, um, as he got announced for the Mosconi Cup, or after he gets picked for the
Yeah,
Mosconi Cup, and I thought that was one of the coolest things that I had seen
yeah,
in a
yeah.
long time.
That's cool stuff. I mean, he kind of when you think about it, he did kind of have that letdown. I mean, he almost lost to Wu.
Right.
Wu took him to the wire, and then after that, the last two when he got into the 16 and then the quarterfinal, he like then he was back in playing mode.
You
Yeah, and then
thought you when Alex was up 8-7, I thought he's he's got a good chance to keep this going. And I'm not gonna lie, Mike, I was rooting for Alex. I really wanted to see
yeah,
Alex get out of there. But the way that Francisco had been breaking the balls, like I didn't have any faith in Alex hitting them with two or three. I just didn't. But Francisco, I said
to
if
the
he gets a
table.
shot at the
Yeah,
table, Alex may
he could
not
run
get back,
out.
and
Yeah,
that's exactly what ended
that's
up
exactly what
happening.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah,
he never got back to the table.
it was pretty
Yeah,
heartbreaking, Mike. And it wasn't for me. It wasn't that Alex, came up short. I mean, he did, but it wasn't that he dogged it. It was just Francisco just
well, he
outplayed
opened
him.
the door for him late in the
He
tournament.
did. He
And
did.
late in the match, opened the door and left. And against these guys at that part of the tournament, you leave the door open a crack, and they're going to blast through. So, uh, and Carlo,
What can you say?
his
Ten
his quarter
zero.
yeah his quarterfinal beatdown. That's probably the one thing that's got going against him was you look at everybody else who tortured somebody. The next round they just don't get it done for whatever reason. So, but that's going to be a hell of a matchup. Who do you like?
Um, and we saw him in a final last year. He's playing great. He's got all the momentum, but there's another guy right across from him that's got a lot of momentum as well.
Yeah,
Every time you think, like you said, Francisco's gonna have a letdown, he just doesn't. He's just playing so well. I I don't know. I think the winner comes out of here though, and I bet you a lot of people
yeah.
that are watching
I think that's
right
the
now
winner.
would,
The favorite's definitely going to come out of this match for sure.
without a doubt, the favorite's going to come out of this
Yeah,
match. They're playing for a lot of money, a lot of pride, a big title. And I love that you keep on stating that because it really is the prestige of the U.S. Open is not to be understated here.
and
Even
even for Francisco, we talk about Derby City and winning Euro tours, things like that. Francisco's never won anything like this. The Derby City to me is not a major. It's not. I just don't consider that in the same league as this event, the World Championship now, even the European Championship or the UK Championship now. Those are big, open, big money tournaments,
Yeah, but the UK Open's
Bronco events.
no U.S. Open.
No, not because it doesn't have history yet, but as far as
Right.
the field and the format and the prize money, it's right there. It's going to be, if they keep having it every year, it's going to be a major, really quick. I've just never considered Derby to be a major. So
Plus,
Francisco still has
the
that going
format's a
for
little
him.
gaffy too with
Yeah,
the
it's
buyback.
the buyback and all that kind of stuff, and shorter races, and so whatever. But not here to bash the Derby City. It's
Mike just took
again.
this
I
show
think
on a turn.
well, I just and someone mentioned before. I wish U.S. Open would go back to true double elimination. Believe me, guys, I'm with you 100%. I wish the U.S. Open was like the old U.S. Open because it was the hardest tournament in the world to win. I still think it's right there, but if it has the same format and everything else, it's like if you took the four tennis majors and put them all on the same playing surface, it would change everything. So, um,
Don't
you
ever
know,
do that because then we'd never have Rafa be the king of clay. That's all I'll
that's
say.
true.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think to me the U.S. Open is still the top title in pool, and I think that all four of these guys know that. And
Mike,
so it's going to be a dogfight.
I'm not trying to jinx the event, Mike. I haven't had any issues with anything Matchroom has done the entire event. I mean, none.
Yeah,
They
no,
they they, they put
it's
on
been pretty clean.
a pretty phenomenal event, wire to wire.
Four
You
ball,
know,
five ball, no problem with that.
yeah, that's been around for a while though. And I love the talking point of it personally. I mean, it's heartbreaking for Joey because that's my guy, and I love rooting for him. And I would have loved to go and see, magical things happen in sports because it can happen. Um, it's Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be a pretty phenomenal final or
Yeah,
last day rather.
yep,
Match is starting in about 10 minutes, guys. Dazen's gonna have it.
yeah.
The
Go get your
semifinals are
early
gonna start
morning
at.
popcorn and load up your DAZN
Hey,
and
Colin. Speaking of you, now that I'm just bringing you up randomly, get us a scoreboard update. I need to know if I won the fantasy so I can talk a lot of shit in the chat that we're all in.
Oh, look,
Um,
Dominic Dunn is here.
and not failing to mention for the 87th time that he's there at the U.S. Open, because he makes it a point every 2 hours to
Well,
remind
I
us.
mean, but I love it though. I mean, you've watched his posts, and he is a kid in a candy store right now. He
Yeah.
is, so it's like someone turned your kid loose in Chuck E. Cheese, and they just went nuts.
Oh God, let him go. Hopefully the kid gets lost. Uh, last four guys, Mike. Who do you got taking down the title?
All right, with my heart, I'm going
Yeah,
Max Lechner.
with
With
your
my
head.
head, I'm going Francisco Sanchez Ruiz.
I'm with you on the heart. I wanna see a guy steal one at the end. It just reminds me of being a kid, Mike, and when you're playing basketball by yourself on the court, somewhere. What are you doing, Mike, when you're playing basketball
Taking
as a
the last
child?
shot for the win.
3, 2, 1, right? And you throw it up. Or when you're playing baseball, and what kind of scenario are you imagining, Mike? It's
Grand slam in the ninth.
the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, bases are loaded.
You're never the pitcher, right? You're always
No,
the
no,
hitter.
no, no. You're always
Always
the
the
batter.
hitter.
Offense all the way, Mike. Nobody remembers the guy with the assist. Um, Max has got that kind of that he's in that position. At least right now to start the
Yeah,
day, he's
live
in
the
that
dream.
position.
Live the
Live,
dream.
live the dream without a doubt. Listen, if he wins this event, Mike, he's essentially playing for 80,000, because
Yeah,
he's in a he'll
really good
get
spot
50.
to win 30,000 as
He'll
Team
get
Europe player, and he'd have 50 here. Yeah, it's an $80,000 payday.
$80,000 day for the guy from Austria. The I remember meeting Max for the first time at the BCA, the World Tin Ball, out in Vegas, and this is after, or maybe right before the international, somewhere around there, maybe that same year. And I remember seeing how well he was playing over the last year, and this is when it's funny because it was the same year that Mario and Alba went on to win the World Cup, or right before then. And I said, man, I think you ought to be on that team. You're playing jam up, and he was always the afterthought at that point.
Yeah,
It's cool to see his progress in his career over the last few years. He's in a really good spot. 80,000, Mike, because you if you make Team Europe, you're a heavy favorite to not just get the automatic 15,
right.
but
You're a favorite for the 30.
you're a favorite for the 30. So it's a massive, massive day for that guy. I hope he's not watching, because he doesn't need any more
Yeah,
pressure.
I don't.
Um,
Well, they're getting ready to play in a couple minutes, so I'd be really surprised if he's like sitting off to the side watching us.
he's got the
It
Bluetooth
would
in.
be, flattering, but I'm not banking on it.
What my head is saying is
Ooh,
what my head is saying is I guess I'm gonna have to go with you, Mike. I'm gonna have to go the same one as you. I don't.
FSR.
I'm gonna have to go with Francisco. Yeah, his break, his for him to be able to put 2 to 3 together with
Yeah,
ease was just and he
that's a
held it
game
to.
changer is in these close matches.
It was the fight. It's the ability to go up. It's the ability to come back. It's the grind. It's the safety battle. It's the execution. I love his pace of play too, because
Yeah,
when he's
it's
got a
fun to
rhythm,
watch. Good
when he's got a
player.
rhythm to him, but he can also steer a little bit, so it's not an automatic. It's exciting, because we saw him going and job some balls, straight in shots, long shots, but he can also come clutch as well. It's a very great mix. Um, Carlo's not that guy you want to make a mistake with, but just from the breaking standpoint, and from what my eyes show me, I'm gonna go with Francisco.
Yeah,
Um, and to
I've
win it
seen
all,
Carlo look a little iffy in a couple of these matches.
well, I think early on against Chen, he gave him a window. Chen just never did anything with it. You
Yeah,
know, um, we're gonna find out in less than 10 minutes. Um, who do you got to win it all, Mike?
FSR.
FSR.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with Max, and I'm probably and good luck to you. I don't know. Yeah, it's if it's that same guy from yesterday, the same guy from yesterday, which is hard to do, but if it's the same one, yeah, I think Max, because Max looked very, very steady. Um, but it's not gonna get any easier. Like if you go and rank these four guys, Max at the bottom of that list.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Max is number 4.
100%.
Like you can work backwards up because that way is easy. You know, um, it's gonna be a great day, great semifinal, great final. Mike, what's been your overall takeaway, and then we'll get out of here.
Great. This was like, I was like a kid in a candy store too, just watching. I was there for a couple days and I came back home, watched everything here. Had 3 screens going yesterday. It was, and like you said, it's been a great run event. No real hiccups to speak of. So yeah, this has been, every big event that has been coming up has been a little better than the previous one. So that's what you're hoping for, right? I mean, the fields have been better, the play's been better, the production's been better, everything. So really good. Been having a lot of fun. Can't wait for the rest of today.
I'm gonna be watching. I'm about to get my phone ready, get my girls fed, get them get them watching something so that way I can go and sweat some pool. It's a great Saturday afternoon. Everyone who's out there, hope you enjoy it. Dom, also, we appreciate all you guys for tuning in, man. We reached almost 200 people watching it throughout the stream, so that's pretty awesome. Hit the like, hit the share button, go sweat it on Daz, and we'll see you guys after the event.